Hey, it's Moni,
And Cody.
and welcome to Whoa, It's Moni. So, Cody, today our little discussion we're going to have is going to be about job interviews.
Okay.
Um, do you remember the last time you even had a job interview? You've had a job for many years now, huh?
hmm Yeah, I've had this job now for 87 years, and so I haven't done an interview for 87 years.
That's a long time.
That is a long time.
Well, whenever I go to a job interview, which it's kind of funny to say, but even when I have a job,
hmm
I'm always interviewing for something better.
Oh, of course.
And I hope that any employer out there knows that.
Right.
But you get in the job interview,
hmm
you're sitting in front of this gatekeeper.
No.
That's what I call them.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty cool. They're like trying to have a conversation, get to know you, and you get to know them. But some of them, they really are on their kind of power trippy gatekeeper self.
hmm
And then I realized I kind of don't want to work for that company, but I'll still sit through the interview
hmm
because why not?
Okay.
I put gas in my car and drove up to the place, and it's kind of, why would I walk out at that point?
Right.
But then they start asking you questions like, why do you want to work here?
Yeah, that's a common question.
And I get their sentiment. But how would you answer that question without saying, because I need money, because I have bills, and I need to eat?
Why would I want to work here?
Yeah, how would you answer that one?
Why would I want to work here? Um, Besides the obvious. Besides, I want to pay my bills.
Yeah, because usually you want to work at a place because they're giving out something called money.
Well, yeah, well, I think we've gone around in circles on that one, so I guess you go right to the point. It depends on what job you're applying for, because after all, that question is going to be answered based on what job you're trying for. If you're trying for a busboy, it's obvious because you want to work in a restaurant. If you're trying for a cashier, it's obvious because you want to work in some place where there's cash registers. You if you want to work in customer service, it's a little broader. Let's say that you want to work in customer service at a department store.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reason why you would choose to work in customer service is because you like working with people. You like solving problems. I can tell you from working in a department store
Mm-hmm.
that while I did not work customer service, and my current job is more or less customer service.
Yeah, I was
by the way.
about to say that.
It is. So certainly I've got plenty of experience in customer service. But if you want to work customer service in a department store, you have to have the patience. You have to have a lot of patience because there is going to be lines. There's going to be long lines. You are going to be slow and pokey. I don't know why that is. There is going to be a policy that your store has established for how customer service is done. My most recent experience with customer service, while yes indeed there was a line and yes indeed they were pokey, is pretty much the customer is always right, and no matter what you say to them, there's no debating it. They just say, yeah, okay, and they give you a refund or whatever, because that's mostly what you do with customer service.
Okay.
Now, to switch this over slightly, I'm thinking of, say, the customer service at a grocery store. It's a little
Okay.
different from the department store.
Pretty much everybody in a grocery store, unless you're only in the back, is doing a customer service job.
Kind of, yeah. But I'm talking about the customer service desk, of course.
Oh, you mean the actual?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
That person, or persons, as they might be switching off, they handle certain transactions. Transactions you might not see at a department store, such as handling old lottery tickets or selling stamps or other things like that.
let me narrow the scope here
Go right ahead.
and say, of course you would know that answer if you went to school for something you have passion for something that you love and want to do with your life. Then you'd be like, oh, I dreamed of this as a kid. I dreamed of this, and I always wanted to do this, right?
No.
And then you can give that kind of passionate answer.
Okay.
But the majority of people that I know who have to take minimum wage work,
Okay.
how do you answer that question?
No, I have no
Do you
idea.
know anybody who their life's dream was to work a minimum wage job?
That's a real question.
I know of one. I know of one person that told me that she always wanted to be, since she was young, a waitress in this diner because she grew up by there.
Okay.
And she ended up being a waitress in the diner, and she worked there from age 18 all the way till age 70.
Okay.
And she was totally fulfilled in her life. She loved working with people. She loved, going into the same thing, problem solving I would expect
Mm-hmm.
if you're working with people in a diner and taking their orders. And,
Mm-hmm.
she loved it because she had her regulars. But this person now is in her 70s, and that was a different time.
Okay.
I don't know if people, think that way anymore. Do they?
Why? I don't know why I would know.
So I just don't know how you answer that question without looking like a liar.
Well, I thought you would come back at me with, something a little more specific. Like, okay, well, let's look at her for a moment. Her dream job was to work at this as a waitress at a restaurant that happened to be near where she lived.
Yeah,
And
and
she ended up
she
getting
worked there
this.
all the way till she was 70 years old.
Uh-huh.
And the only reason she actually quit, because, not
Oh,
like
she
had-
quit.
the only reason why she didn't work there anymore was because the diner closed.
Really?
Like, she would still be working there now, but the diner closed,
Ah.
so now she is out of work.
Oh. So she's still looking for a job?
No, she's 70, so she retired,
Um.
and I don't know her husband's situation,
Uh-huh.
but she has one.
Oh.
So, I guess my question, besides if you're this woman who, she had a very fulfilling job and really liked that for her life, how do you go into an interview when you're going to make $7.25 and say, oh, I really want to work here because I really want to make $7.25 for the rest of my life,
So let me see if
without looking like some sort of liar?
So what is your question? Are you saying that a person is going in to apply for a minimum wage job? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, because
Okay,
a person
so
who
wait,
goes
wait,
to
so
apply
they-
for their
wait,
dream
wait, wait,
job
wait.
wouldn't have this feeling about a job interview.
Wait, so they're going in knowing that they're going to get minimum wage.
Right.
Right. Not better than minimum wage, which most places, by the way, are paying better than minimum wage, just so you know.
Not necessarily, because a lot of people that I know who go in for these jobs that are so-called paying better than minimum wage, they'll go in for the interview, and it's kind of a bait and switch.
Oh,
Like,
really?
it'll say $9 on the job application, and they'll go in and be like, oh, sorry, we filled that job application already, but we do have the job that's open for $7.25.
Well, the person going in and applying for that job could at that point say, well, then thank you very much, and walk out the door. Or they can go ahead and look at the other job.
I feel like the people that do that, though, they're hoping that the interviewee is coming in desperate enough that they will take that job.
Uh-huh.
And is that dishonest? Is that rude? I don't know what to think about.
Well, you called it bait and switch.
Because it is bait and switch.
You called it bait and switch, so I'm just going to go with your premise because I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to just imagine that you're correct.
Okay.
So they go and they advertise the job for $9 an hour. You go in and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, that job got filled, but we do have this other job at $7.25." The first thing that should come out of the person's mouth, assuming they actually wanted to work at that place,
Yeah.
is what is this other job? Oh, it's just like the other job except it pays less.
That's the bait and switch.
Well, that's when you say, well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I will go home and talk to my wife and my kids and see if this is a good financial plan for our future. And I'll come back and let you know if I want to apply for that job. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Okay, so that's what you should do.
Right. Now, so let me just roll this back because you kind of like set the wrong table. So I want to set the right table. All right. If you're applying for a minimum wage job, there's
Sure.
only a few reasons why you're applying for a minimum wage job. The first one is you have no experience. You have no experience in that field.
Sure.
And you've become desperate enough to say, I've got to try this field because the field that I want to be in, I'm not getting anywhere in, and you recognize that you are going to have to take a much lower paid job.
Absolutely.
And for some reason, you have recognized that your budget will allow you to do this because if you're someone that's my age or your age, we might want to not even be trying for those jobs. Those are beginner jobs. They are jobs that are stair steps. People who take jobs like that don't intend on working that job for the next 20 years. They either expect to be upwardly mobile in that company or they expect to move on shortly after.
So what about this?
The subject that I was talking about before. So to go into the answer.
No, that's not the answer. The answer that I'm talking about, why people will be going into these jobs, is that maybe you're my age or a little bit younger, right? And you started a family. You don't have enough time to work a full-time job, right? But you don't want gaps in your job application that you have to explain that you have children. Do you get what I'm saying here?
And let me see if I've got this right. In your scenario, it's a married couple. He's working full-time. She wants a part-time job, or vice versa.
You don't have to be married. You can be anybody that just can't work a full-time job right now due to their family situation.
Family situation.
You know, they might have had kids, or you might have to take care of an older parent. You might have to take care of a disabled sibling. You know, anything like that. But you don't want to look like you have 5 to 10 years gap in your job application. Because they will ask you that at any job. Minimum wage or salary paid full-time jobs that you dream of getting.
Okay, so
because they'll ask you it, and then you don't want to lie there.
Okay,
You don't want to lie saying, you know, whatever, but you don't really want to tell people your family situation because you know, I don't think that it's necessarily conscious all the time, but when people know that you have a family situation, they think that you won't be on call, you know, 24/7. If you get what I'm saying.
Okay, so either you've got a question or a statement that you're going to make.
I'm talking about that's the situation why people that I know are looking for minimum wage jobs, you know, to fill the time. So yes, it is a stair step, but it's more of a it's more of an application filler for time than it is of something that they want to dream to do.
Okay, so they're not dreaming of working in that fast food restaurant.
Of course.
They instead are saying, I just need to get this on my resume just for, you know, to have something.
A couple years of work, so you don't have like 10 years of empty job application.
Right, okay, so where do I go with this? What is your question then?
That's just my statement of why somebody would be looking for a job like that.
Oh, well then I'm going to say okay.
Okay. And then here's another question that they say. They say, what is one of your major weaknesses? How would you answer that?
A person at a job interview says, what's your major weakness?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. Only because you would want to, you know, the best weakness that you could possibly say, is you have tendency to this tendency to work beyond your hours. That is, that you're supposed to get off at 5 o'clock, but you end up working all the way to 5:30, and not getting paid for it because you love
You
the
ain't
job
got
so
no
much.
overtime in a job like that.
Of course not.
So,
So they're
actually,
more than
that's a
happy
pretty-
for you to say, yeah,
that's a-
you want to be the fry person for a half hour? Terrific. That's wonderful.
that's actually a pretty good answer.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm thinking about is that overthinking it? Because these
Oh,
questions...
you were definitely overthinking
No,
this.
no. Is your answer overthinking it? Because I feel like psychologically, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm not wrong in every situation,
Uh-huh.
that they're throwing these questions at you
Mhm.
to see if you'll trip up.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Now that sounds like overthinking, but I'm going to go with this one.
Because there's one interview question that they'll say to you, and it's really funny.
Don't you want to
Like,
finish this
no,
one
no,
first?
this is about the same thing.
Oh.
Say, I'll go in and they'll be like, my name is Moni, but then they'll call you the wrong name in the job interview and see if you'll correct them or see if you miss it.
And why would they do that?
To see if you caught details.
Ah.
Because they're trying to trip you up. Literally, they'll call you 3 different names within the interview.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, why would they? Because they want to trip you up, you said.
Yeah. They want to see how you'll react under a pressure or embarrassing situation.
So, what do you think if you tell them if the interviewer calls you Sally, and you say, no, my name is Moni?
I don't know what they think about it, but that's what they'll be doing. Or they'll read the wrong application, and then you'll be like, oh no, that's not my application. My application, I worked at this place instead. And it's just a kind of a trick to see if you, I don't know, like, I wouldn't say go crazy, but like, if you're able to handle the pressure of something embarrassing, something, thrown at you.
Well, I've never had any experience like this, so I'm going to have to go with your experience. So, when people try to trip you up in a job interview, how did you handle it?
I just corrected them.
You always corrected them. Did
Yeah.
you get those jobs?
Some of them.
Well, there you go.
It's just a weird relationship, I feel like, to be in, where depending on the place that you're applying to, which I would hope that everybody would apply to their dream job. I would hope everybody would be able to apply to their dream job. But if you're not, you're sitting in a room with somebody and lying straight at them for an hour, and they're, depending on who they are, lying at you for an hour, and somehow you're supposed to work with these people.
You probably.
Do you understand what I'm talking about now?
Unless you're applying for a job in HR, you aren't working with those people.
If it's a manager in a store, you'd be working with those people.
You won't see them.
Yes, you will.
They'll be in the HR department.
I'll give you an interview. When I was 15 years old, I told my parents I wasn't going to go to college. And I thought, I'm just going to go get a job. So my dad made me go look for jobs. I got an interview at a pretty popular thrift store.
Okay.
I know you love thrift stores. I used to like them more before I got a job interview at one. And I'm sitting in the job interview, and it's the manager.
Okay.
And she was working out on the floor, like she
Well,
was.
yeah, it's not HR, that's the manager.
Yeah, and she was the interviewer. She was a young woman, and she asked me questions about, why do I want to work here, blah, 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 what hours can you work, and blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, where have you worked before? And I'm like, I haven't worked anywhere before.
Okay.
This will be my first job. Before this, school was where I was all day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And pretty much it would be too, but I'd be working after school or on
Right.
the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
But she acted like I was crazy. Like I should have had a job since I was 10 years old or something.
Okay.
And then I walked out of the interview.
Okay.
Like I was like, thank you.
So you didn't get the job.
No, I didn't even get a call back or a rejection. But no, because like obviously to work in this thrift store, you had to have 10 years of work experience in retail and, you know, stuff like that.
Seems
At
unlikely.
least from this manager's perspective.
Mm.
But what I really think is, probably just didn't like me. Which, that's okay, because when I was 15, I was a brat.
Mm.
But you see where I'm talking about?
Okay.
About, you know, the weird dynamic.
Okay.
That if I had actually got that job, I don't know if I would have been lying to her at that point, but we'd have to be working together.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that is an example of a job where your interviewer would be
Mm-hmm.
your supervisor.
Uh-huh.
My other question that they ask me all the time in job interviews is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Uh-huh.
Now, if I applied at fast food, hopefully I would not be working there for 5 years. But are you supposed to say that in the interview? Or are you supposed to lie and say, I'd love to work here for $9 an hour for the rest of my life?
Oh, well, that...
Because they certainly don't want to hear that you want to move up into management and take their job.
Why?
Because people are people.
No. Let me be clear about this. If you are asked a question in, say, a fast food restaurant situation, and they say, where do you want to be in 5 years? The correct answer should be that you'd like to move into management. That's the correct answer. Why on earth would anyone say, yeah, I'd like to be flipping burgers for, 5 years from now? Right now I'm the guy who's mopping the floor, but I'd love to be flipping burgers 5 years from now. I would want to hear, if I was interviewing, I want to move up into management.
Because you are an honest person. You are a nice person, Cody. You are. You want the best for everybody. But a lot of people don't want that.
They don't.
No.
Well,
And it's really sad.
okay.
But no, they really don't want to hear that. And it blows my mind. It really does. Because you want to think that everybody has the best, intentions for everybody else. But they just don't.
Okay.
And I literally had a job. I had a job interview. Sorry, I did not get this job. At a pet store.
Uh-huh.
It was a chain pet store.
Uh-huh.
I had the interview. I came in, talked about all the pets that I had as a kid, and that I had a dog, and I love him, and whatever, and walk, and all this stuff. Talking about pets.
Right.
Then she asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Uh-huh.
I said, well, I see myself, having graduated from college, and, looking into getting into a career. Right?
Uh-huh.
And she literally told me that she didn't see that for what her employee would be.
She didn't what?
She didn't see that kind of path for what she wanted in an employee.
Oh.
She said if I got this job right now, she would expect me to make that my career.
Oh.
And that job was, I think they were starting at $9.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, you mean management? And she was like, no, store associate.
Okay.
For the rest of my life?
Well, now, hold on a second. Would the job that you were applying for be store associate?
Mm-hmm.
Why would anyone want to remain store associate for 5 years?
I know, and that's why I told her the truth. I told her I would want to be graduated from college by then and be stepping into a career. Now, I didn't say I'll leave this pet store and go someplace else. I did not say that.
Uh-huh.
Even though I could have. I could have.
Uh-huh.
Because I wasn't in a college program to work in a pet store.
Right.
I wasn't even in business or management training
Uh-huh.
at the time.
Right.
But she told me that wasn't what she saw for the employee that she was going to hire.
Uh,
So I think at that point, from what you would say, I should have got up and walked out. Is that what you're? Is that what I should have done?
I don't. I wouldn't say that at all. I don't understand why you asked me that question. No. If what on earth would possess her to think that if you're going to ask a question, if the question is being asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That has to mean mobility. I mean, some kind of, an upward mobility within the business. It can't possibly mean, hey, I want to be doing the same job 5 years from now that I'm doing right now, or that I'm applying for right now. That wouldn't make sense. Why would anyone ever ask that?
That's what you would think, but they ask that, and I feel like a better question that would be able to be asked as an interviewer is, where do you see yourself in 5 years within our company?
Okay, fine.
But they don't ask it that way. They throw out the general 5-year question, for who knows what reason.
Okay.
I don't understand it. Like, does job interviewing need to be reworked or what's the point of that question if it isn't to advance?
Okay.
Because you know that someone's not going to say, well, where do you want to be in 5 years? And they're going to say, oh, I want to make less money than I make now. You're not going to say that.
Of course.
And I think that you're kind of, I don't know what kind of person you look like if you say you want to be in the same position.
Okay.
But it's like some of these questions there's no right answer. And that's one of my problems with it.
So what's another one of the questions that people might be asking in an interview?
They also ask things like, what would you do if a problem arose in this job? Now, I suppose if you have worked that same kind of job before, you would know how to resolve a situation. But if this is your first time going out for a minimum wage or cheap pay job, how would you know how to handle the problem before you are trained and orientated to the work? I'm serious.
When it comes to...
I wouldn't know what the policies of your business is before I come in. And that even translates from store to store within the same field.
Of course.
So what do you think that they're looking for there? They're looking for, are you generally smart? Because, you're not the person that makes the policies. They are.
That's right.
So what are they looking for, you think?
I think they're looking for you to be able to say that you would recognize when you can't answer a question and would then ask them for guidance.
Well, a couple times when I was asked that question, I was like, well, I haven't worked in your store before. I'm not familiar with the policy. And I would be able to ask a manager or coworker. Right?
Okay.
Then they throw back at you, what if you were working alone? Yeah. I don't know. I haven't worked your job before. I'm sitting in the interview and the second question in and you're asking me that. You know that's funny.
I know that there are some jobs where store policy is printed out and you're supposed to go to the store policies and find the answer.
Yeah, but not in the interview.
No.
You wouldn't even know that if you hadn't worked there. After you get the job, they'd give you an orientation, I would hope. At least one day or a couple hours where they show you where all the behind-the-counter policy stuff is.
Well, I would think so, yeah.
With all of that said, please respond to my feelings about the 5-year question, because maybe
you still want to talk
87
about 5-year question?
No. Maybe 87 years ago, you were able to move up in a chain in a restaurant.
No.
But it seems like today, that's squashed.
No, nothing's changed. You think about if there's anything that's changed in the last 87 years, there's one thing, and that is these days there's a thing called management school. That didn't exist 87 years ago. Back then there was a chance of moving up, but if you look at around for I don't know last 40 years or 30 years or something like that, the majority of the businesses hire from outside of the business.
Mm-hmm.
An example would be my job, where there was recently a job opening for someone to move
Mm-hmm.
up into a higher position,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a person who had worked there for years and years and years, and she was being supported by my boss among other people for
Of
that
course,
position,
of course.
which would have made her his boss, by the way. But instead, they decided to reach outside of the business and hire this other guy. Now, he's okay, he's a nice guy and all that for what he is, but I can tell you right now that nobody likes him. I don't mean people like me, but I mean the people that he's actually working with, because I'm far below where he is, so I don't really see him. But my point is, they hired him because for some reason these days businesses look outside of their business to bring in new talent. Let's just say that you're a cashier at a grocery store and you've been working there for 10 years. Well, you have two things. You have a positive and you have a negative. The positive, you have all this experience with the store. You know the nooks and crannies. You know your job inside and out, upside down. You could teach anyone this job any day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of the coin, you also know all the dirt. You know what Sally over there, that other cashier, how she's always complaining about the job and blah, 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 blah. Right. And so what you end up with is you end up with a person that they feel is flawed for the job because, after all, you know all the positives and negatives about the job. Now, in my job that I was referring to, the guy that they hired knows nothing about the job. The result is he comes in and we all see it. I've been in there forever. He's totally naive. He's so totally nice. He's so totally I want to help everybody kind of thing.
And I'm guessing young.
Fairly young.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is
younger than 87.
Well, yeah, of course, everyone's younger than 87. But the most important thing is they know, just like everyone else who works this job, after a couple years of the grind, every one of them turns gray. Every one of them turns into this person where things don't work anymore, where they can't be helping everybody do their job better or anything else, and they end up being the same dullards as all the other people who work there.
I had a job working for the same company that you work for. That two sides to the job merged together. So they were looking for a new manager.
Of course.
Now the person that was managing before at that point retired. So they were looking for a new manager.
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy to find out that a woman who had worked there for 8 years was promoted to that position.
Okay.
She worked the job I worked and then was promoted to the manager.
Well, good for her.
That is something I never see.
That's
I
pretty
felt, wow, that must have felt good for her.
So what happened?
Well, she was the best manager I've ever had in my life.
Is she still working it?
Sadly, she passed.
Oh.
But she would have been, she was the best manager I ever had in my life because she knew what we dealt with on a daily basis. She knew the good. She knew the bad. And she made it better for us. And you know what else she did? She had loyalty. Because she knew how it was.
Right.
And I even told her, I said, wow, I feel, that you're the best boss that I ever had. And I even told her, I said, maybe it's because you worked here before and you know how it is working our job. No, our job was not horrible. Our job was actually pretty fun. But if you've worked there before, you know the inner workings of the job. You know what we can do and what we can't do, what deadlines we can realistically meet and what we can't realistically meet.
Right.
And she was great for the job. Now, I take it back. She wouldn't still be working there because she did quit and she got a different job that did pay more. which is good for her. Good
Yeah.
for her. But me and her left that company at the same time, so I don't know what it would be like working under a different boss at that job. But she did move to a different job
Right.
at that time. But she was great, and she was from within the company.
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
And isn't that great?
Of course.
At least one of us got up, right? You know.
Yeah.
But I know of a situation recently that I think you know of too. That somebody that we know applied for a supervisor job at the shopping mall, and they brought somebody else from a different store in the mall to take that job instead. When this person had the passion for the job, had the years at the job, and they brought somebody in from the outside. Now, I'm not a person to say this person was underqualified or not qualified, but that just looks shady to me.
Okay.
Or is that just how it is these days? They want to bring people from the outside.
I think that often they do want to bring someone in from the outside.
Okay.
I think they do, because they're looking for a new perspective. If you think about it, someone who's got all the experience and knows all the ins and outs also is less likely to have a new perspective. They have probably already passed all of their wisdom on to the job, where people already know all of the great ideas that that person had, and they got it all for free. Now they bring in someone new.
I don't know. I've had perspectives at my jobs that I've just kept my mouth closed on because I know that they wouldn't fly. So I don't think that they're going to, necessarily know everything unless they're a mind reader. So to wrap up this topic, what do you think you need to land the job and move up in the same company?
Nepotism.